Is running a viral social media claim through the Trust Index tonight about U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents allegedly whipping Haitian migrants as they tried to get into the United States. The dramatic scene has drawn widespread condemnation by the White House, politicians, and the public. But were CBP agents really using whips, and were the migrants physically assaulted? The News4JAX Trust Index team is giving this claim a rating of not true, and this is the reason why. This video, originally captured by Al Jazeera, shows U.S. Border Patrol agents on horseback trying to stop Haitian migrants from entering an encampment on the banks of the Rio Grande on Sunday. But it's this image, captured by photographer Paul Ratchey, that's led to widespread criticism. Oregon Senator Jeff Berkeley took to Twitter writing, "Use of whips on refugees? Disturbing and unacceptable. This must end immediately." The Intercept journalist Ryan Devereaux tweeted, "Border Patrol agents on horseback cracking whips and charging into crowds of Haitian asylum seekers in Texas, shouting at them to go back to Mexico." And Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer tweeting, "The images of inhumane treatment of Haitian migrants by Border Patrol, including the use of whips, are unacceptable." Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, however, is denying that Border Patrol agents use whips, explaining to reporters that agents use long reins to control their horses and not whips, saying the reins were being held by CBP agents. Mayorkas also added that a full investigation is warranted.
Good evening and welcome to a new edition of Real World News TV. One of your hosts, Reggie Kearney, and I have tonight with me, Sherry-Ann Tappett. Sherry-Ann, how are you doing tonight?
I'm okay. You know, it's
okay.
just watching stuff like that is just extremely disturbing, and it's hard to maintain your sense, your zen when you see stuff like that.
Right. Well, if you haven't already figured out, tonight's topic is going to center around the treatment of the Haitians at the border. Very irritated, very mad, very upset, very bothered about those pictures, and really bothered by this news commentator, saying that what we saw was not true. What we saw, unless I'm blind, I saw what I saw. So people being treated inhumanely at the border.
There's so many thoughts. Poor Haiti, for a country that has such a important place in history. To see it suffer the way that it has, and putting politics aside for a moment, the number and frequency of natural disasters that are recorded between floods, hurricanes, pandemics, cholera outbreaks, floods. I mean, the country just can't get a break. And then on top of that, the imperialistic intervention of countries like the United States and France back when it had its fingers in Haiti. It's no small wonder that country has never been able to develop in the way that it should. Robbed of its natural resources, its banking and finances under the control of the U.S. government for many, many years. And there's some aspects of it that remind me in part of how we treat Puerto Rico. We send an abundance of material goods to Haiti to be purchased, but we don't buy a lot of things from Haiti. The same thing we do in Puerto Rico. Even though our political relationship with Puerto Rico being a commonwealth of the United States is a little bit different, we still use these countries as a resource. Now, if it's not as blatant slavery, it's as slaves to our economic needs in this country. We do it in Puerto Rico, we've done it in Haiti, and it's really just truly disgusting. And looking back at the history, I was reminded again of the AIDS pandemic and how Haitians were treated in the 80s, and they couldn't even donate blood. Cubans could come here. You could have Haitians and Cubans on the same boat. Cubans would get asylum and Haitians would be sent back. They've always gotten the shit end of the stick, if you pardon the expression. And to think that this is a country, especially right now, where you have the right that likes to claim the moral high ground and claim that it's founded in their religious beliefs, whether it's Christianity or Catholicism or whatever, and to sit back and watch them make excuses for treating people this way. The image of these men on horseback, whether they whipped these folks or not, and I do believe they did, because we all know that Border Patrol people are power-hungry Nazis just itching to prevent people from coming over. It's unfathomable when clearly they've just suffered a major event. And these aren't drug runners looking to come here. These aren't murderers looking to come here. These are families looking to survive, basic human survival. And to see them treated this way, horses used, weaponized, whips or not, to prevent these folks from crossing a small river. And it begs the question, I was looking at the statistics, and it looks like, slightly less than half of those people are being considered for political asylum. And the rest of them are being shipped back to Haiti, whether they're from Haiti or not. These people are of Haitian descent, but they're all not from Haiti. And you've got families being shipped back to Haiti and left there to fend for themselves. They've got nowhere to go. They've got no home. They've got no family. A lot of these folks were born in Central America or Brazil. It's disgusting. It's reprehensible.
Yeah, I'm glad you added that last part to it, that most of them were from South America. The majority of them were from South America. But I think the one thing that was the driving force to bring them to the borders of the United States was they heard that there were jobs here in this country. And for some strange reason, I haven't figured it out yet, why there are so many jobs here in this country at this time. Because right before the pandemic, you couldn't even hardly find a job. Now jobs are readily available. I understand the fact that a lot of people are not going back to work for one reason or the other, but these people came looking for work. Okay, and one other problem I have that even though they're legal immigrants, also the Mexicans and the people from Central America and South America, the treatment that they receive is much better than what the Haitians receive. Okay, it's like if you're black, there's a different set of rules for you. Okay, regardless of what country you're from. Okay, there's a different set of rules, and for the photo ops, I don't know what Bobbitt was doing down there for him to take every SUV in the state of Texas and line it up across the border I mean, that's a whole lot of BS. You know that it's just I just can't get with it. You know, because it just shows you how the some minds of white America operate.
Mhm.
They still see us as commodities and nothing else.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it, it's interesting. You bringing up Bob, it reminds me of the United States reaction to the Haitian Revolution when it took place at the time. And, the South and those who were supporters of slavery did not want the slaves in the U.S. to learn of the revolt for obvious reasons. They did not want the U.S. to recognize Haiti as its own sovereign nation. And so there's this history of criminalizing Haitians. They revolted against their masters. And I think that sort of bled into modern day. I mean, we all know that there's a pathological tendency to automatically criminalize people of color, whether you know them or not, regardless of their social background or financial status. So it doesn't surprise me, given the history of this country's reaction and imperialistic views with respect to Haiti and other countries in the Caribbean. It's just really hard to fathom that in any way I'm very disappointed in the Biden administration. Let's just say that. Blaming this on maintaining the Trump era immigration policies, I think, is a cowardly move. Have the courage of your convictions. Either admit that you agree with those immigration policies or eliminate them. Now, this organization, and I cannot remember what the acronym stands for, so you have to forgive me while I look it up, it's the Black Alliance for Just Immigration. They're demanding that the administration incorporate the racial equity executive order. It's signed on Biden's first day. And if you remember, we talked about this during the show. There were a number of executive orders that we signed the first day that made us hopeful that things were going to be different. And this organization is saying that they need to apply the incorporate their plan for racial equity into immigration policies, not just at the border, but in the country in general. And I agree with that. It's a shame that we have to make that distinction still in this day and age.
Now, one of the things, I'm very disappointed in Biden. I mean, he's better than what we had, but the way he does government, I don't know if we are any better off than what we were as Black Americans, okay? It seems like we are still being treated as second-class citizens. Now, when you go back and look at Haiti, you need to look at Papa Doc and his father and how they raided the bank vaults of the money and the aid that the United States and other countries were sending them, Haiti has always, and big kudos to them for standing up against those slave owners, okay? They did the right thing. They did what we could. I mean, they're the poorest country in the world, okay? They need help, okay? They need help. One of the things that the acting prime minister asked for when the president got killed was he asked the Biden administration to send over the army or law enforcement personnel, whatever, to help keep order and peace in the streets. What was so wrong with that request? They just wanted that presence there because it's gangster land over there. And a lot of people, they don't want to get caught up with the gangs and they can't get the food because the gangs steal the food before it gets to them. It's a mess over there. So why couldn't he allow maybe 200, 300 troops to go over there and help keep peace and order with the Haitian police also?
That's a mixed bag, because if you look at the history of the United States' intervention in Haiti, it has never ended well. It was in 1915, there was disruption again, and the U.S. went in there to try to help. And our version of help was removing $500,000 from the Haitian National Bank for safekeeping in New York. And then we stayed there and occupied for 20 years. And we did not leave the place better off than it was. So I wonder if the United States is the best country to turn to for assistance. Because
Well,
we've demonstrated, historically speaking, that we cannot be, as a government looking to help them. We've not been altruistic. We've not been empathetic. We've not aided them in any way. And
they're the best. The United States is the best country to do this. Because first of all, China doesn't care for blacks either. Even though they go into Africa and raid Africa of all their minerals and oil and stuff, they're not the country to do it because strategically it wouldn't be good for the United States, and neither is Russia. The United States needs to step up and do more in Haiti, help rebuild Haiti. Okay, I mean honestly, if they got to go in and help establish a government, they always want to help establish governments elsewhere in the world. This is the opportunity to help the Haitian people establish a government that they have confidence in and do stuff and help rebuild that country.
yeah,
They,
but
they,
but
they don't
whenever we help install a government, we put a puppet in as the head of the regime that has got our interests at the forefront rather than Haitian interests or the interests of the country that
right
they're
now,
representing.
right now, I don't even care. The only thing I care about is helping the Haitians rebuild that country. They've been through so much natural disasters. There's nothing left standing. I mean, you got to realize those homes that were built, the buildings that were built of sand bricks. Okay, they weren't going to stand up to nothing. Okay, dirt bricks. Okay, they haven't had the quality of anything to build that country. And so, what we are doing now, what we're doing now, that country is slipping further and further and further and further into a dark black hole,
Hmm.
and nobody's there to help them. Someone has to step up to the plate and say, we're going to help this country rebuild. And that's what they need, okay? And one reason I say we need to go in there and somehow work with them, the establishing the government, it seems like all the government officials they've had think of themselves, okay? Any money that goes into the country, along with the gangs, that's where it stops at.
Well, there's also I think Haiti has the highest per capita rate of NGOs, and money that goes to these NGOs doesn't go through the state. So there is a lot of grift on multiple levels going on in Haiti. I remember once I was speaking to this fella, and he was well off, a Haitian Republican in the United States, which I thought was an anomaly in and of itself. But I remember once he was talking about going to Haiti and he wanted to try and help and start some type of organization. But through the course of the conversation, it became apparent to me that even he was thinking about ways that he can monetize it for his own interest.
Mhm.
And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're talking about going back and helping your own country, but you're also talking about screwing him at the same time. And I don't know, I think he was raised here for most of his life. So I don't know if, that earwig of American capitalism just got in there. Must be, since he's a Republican. Um, but it was just very depressing to think that you would hope that people go into it altruistically. There's so many entities in the United States alone who could have a substantial positive impact on Haiti without looking for monetary gain, because frankly, they don't need it, right? You've got the mega churches that were tithing people's COVID relief funds and saying, send it all to us. I mean, they've got an abundance of money. They could help. We have some of the wealthiest American citizens in this country. You've got Gates and all of these other people. They could afford to contribute financially and not look for it to benefit them financially. Not to mention the fact that it'd be a tax write-off if you want there to be something in it for them. But they wouldn't have to monetize their donation. It's
But
possible.
yeah, whoever goes in there has to go in there with control of what's going on in that country. Because like I said, it's a broken country and people will take advantage of whomever comes into that country to benefit themselves. And I think that's one of the other problems they've had is just the greed of individuals down there to look out for themselves, like Papa Doc and his father, a long reign of terror down there. And like I said, the buck stopped with them. They lived lavishly while the people outside the palace did not live lavishly. And that's sad. Something has to be done. I mean, because like I said, it's almost like nobody that Haitian is a lost country.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying attention to it. And
What almost seems like punishment.
yeah.
It seems like decades of punishment for the
Mhm.
slave revolt. That's what this
Yeah.
seems like.
Yeah.
Putting aside the multitude of natural disasters that they've had, and I don't know what can be done about that. Even if you build up the infrastructure and make homes stronger, it clearly is still a place that's in the path of floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, and earthquakes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not a geologist. I'm not a scientist. I don't know what the options are to help address those issues. I mean, Japan has been somewhat successful in the way that they build and whatnot to prevent everything from collapsing when they have earthquakes, although they do suffer from it. I just don't know if it's with the same degree of frequency that it happens in Haiti. But Jesus, they've got some bad mojo working on down there. I would invite any of our viewers tonight who, if they have family or friends or are from Haiti themselves, to join the conversation. There's a lot we don't know and a lot we're not taught or exposed to here in this country about Haiti. But our prayers are with them.
And like I said, those individuals, they were just coming to America for jobs. I mean, one guy in an interview said he was hoping to get to New York where he could get him a job. I mean, these people want what we have, okay? I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting a better life.
Yeah.
They heard. That's why, when you look at when the Mexicans and Latinos from Mexico and Central America, South America started making their way to the United States, it was for jobs. They heard that we weren't working, that we didn't want the jobs, so they came to America and took, the jobs that we didn't want to have. Then we got mad because they came here getting the jobs. The same thing is happening now. Haitians here, there's work. There is. These guys, everybody I talk to owns a business is having a problem hiring people now. So you got a group of people who want to come. It was only 11,000 of them. Let them in. They let more than that. How many Afghans did they bring over here?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. Again, that shows, that speaks to some of the disparity that people are complaining about. I mean, look, unfortunately, with this country, with the exception of, people immigrating, whether legally or not, from predominantly white countries, let's just put it out there, all other countries with people of color, we're talking about degrees of despicable treatment, right? Some are treated better, but they're all, at the end of the day, disrespectful and dehumanizing. But there is a clear and obvious disparity between, our opening our doors for the Syrian refugees and the women and children coming in from the Middle East now that the Taliban has taken over, versus what we're doing at the border with the Haitians. And the other thing that I want to say is what they didn't show you on the film, on the videos, and I'd be very interested in seeing, is all we see are these assholes on horseback whipping their horses and anybody else in the nearest vicinity and using the horses bodily to prevent people from crossing this river. And yet we're supposed to believe that there's some mechanism down there that helps vet and make a determination as to who they will allow to apply for political asylum or not. All of them should be entitled to asylum, given the horror that are the living conditions down there, between the gangs and the criminal activity and the natural disasters and the food scarcity and lack of home and shelter and all of that. It's just I get lost in the noise in my head of the number of comments and thoughts and reactions that I have when we're having this conversation, because it is truly overwhelming.
And most of the people, for the most part, would allow a country to come in there and run that country and help them get themselves back on their feet. I mean, Lord have mercy. I can't even fathom, having to sleep outside every night, even in the rain, because your buildings have fallen down over the years. They haven't been replaced. You keep going through these earthquakes. You keep going through these hurricanes. It's like they're living in their own little hell. I mean, that's what it is. Their own little hell that they didn't ask for this, but Mother Nature shows no mercy. Uh, Foreign powers show no mercy. You know,
Yeah.
uh, it's just crazy. But this is another problem I have too. Okay, Biden was in the hot seat. Okay, he was literally in the hot seat on this one. Okay, so what they do, they scoop them all up and they take them to camps, the camps that they had been using for people coming from South America and Mexico. That's what they did. They scooped them all up, and then they hide them in a sense now because it was an embarrassment to the Biden administration, and people around the world were looking at the treatment and how they were treating these people. You know, so
There are no words, and we're
Mhm.
we're sitting here trying to think of solutions, and there is no easy solution. uh Kay Lyle, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, says they need jobs to help rebuild their country, they need supplies to rebuild, etc. They need money, but who can say that it will be used for rebuilding? Will the money get to the people? And that speaks to a comment that I made earlier about the NGOs, and the lack of a bridge between the NGOs and the state, and how that money gets spent. If you would need a large company to build some kind of infrastructure out there in order to create jobs. So clearly they need construction. So a construction company could go down there. They need hospitals, they need Medicare, they need schools. I mean, they need everything. But also these companies are going to have to look up, unfortunately, given the political unrest, the criminal activity, the natural disasters, it'd be a big gamble. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, but just playing devil's advocate and thinking
Mhm.
about companies, thinking about their bottom line. Can they afford to open up shop down there to create the jobs that are necessary to help, strengthen the economy by creating jobs, by bringing money down there, by having people earn a livable wage and have something to do constructively by helping to rebuild their country?
That all comes with job training and sacrifices from the country. I mean, from the companies. It's not a money making deal because it would be expensive for companies to go down there and to do stuff pro bono. Okay, but this is what that country needs at this time. Also go down with the understanding that what you put up might not last. Okay,
Mhm.
because that area is very prone to hurricanes and it is definitely prone to strong earthquakes. Okay,
Mm.
so whatever you do as far as going on that building, will it be up in 10 years? Okay, well, another
Yeah.
devastating earthquake coming down. So Haiti is a process that's ongoing. Whatever you do, you're gonna have to go back down and replace it. But nothing has even been done to start replacing what's happened down there. And that's the whole problem. I think, like I said, United States would jump on these other countries and help them in that time of need. But like I said, they look the other way uh, when it comes to Haiti.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of places that countries turn their nose,
Hmm.
turn away from. You've got islands that are slowly sinking because of the rising waters, and
Hmm.
communities are going to be lost. Now, if these people try to integrate elsewhere, they're met with hardship at the border.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
almost as though these other countries, and unfortunately, look, we tend to call ourselves a minority, but the fact is we're a global majority. All right. I think that we
Hmm.
should start using that language moving forward to start changing the perspective, because the fact is people of color outnumber the other group by far.
Hmm.
But there's this tendency, whether said or not, to treat these folks as disposable. It doesn't matter. You don't count. So what if your country floats away, or is completely devastated and unlivable as a result of natural disasters? Uh, Somebody else's problem. It's not ours.
Hmm.
And we have not yet gotten to the only time we get to a place where we think about ourselves as a global entity of human beings on this planet is for sound bites, is for opportunistic moments to look good in the media and maybe get some votes. Like when you had some journalists being stabbed and killed or shot in France because they were writing articles that made fun of Muhammad or what have you. The world had plenty of moments of silence for them. Or we have moments where we talk about what's going on in other countries, and then it just dissipates and disappears. Look, they don't even talk about the 5,000 or more children that are missing that came over from the border during Trump's reign. They just disappeared, probably sex trafficked or whatever. But again, we have this tendency to get outraged for a moment, and then we get distracted and the story moves on because it's not happening to us. And much like the story recently with Gabby, I forget her last name, the poor woman who was murdered probably by her fiance, all over the news, a manhunt with horses and dogs going across state lines looking for this woman. But you have something like 30,000 women of color between Native Americans and varying degrees of color throughout this country who are disappeared, murdered, kidnapped daily, and you don't see that same outcry.
I was surprised today that one of her relatives said that, that he said, look, the FBI has been doing a great job. He said, but media has done even a better job. But it would be good if media would do this for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling the truth, because they pick and choose who they want to follow and who they want to help try to find. They were talking about the number of indigenous women who have been lost this year. But I think it's about like 50 some women have gone missing this year, but nobody has shined a spotlight on that. Look at the number of black women who are missing in this country right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody shines a light on it, but
of course
it's
not.
all about.
They're probably prostitutes. They're probably drug addicts. They don't have their whole future ahead of them. Again, this tendency to think of people as color as criminal.
But if Haiti was European, white Europeans, they'd be taking care of that country, okay?
This country is only one or two major disasters away from having an immigration crisis like that. If, a major nuclear, what do you call those?
We wouldn't be around.
Like in Texas or the East Coast, a power plant were to be attacked, or our food source in the Midwest were to be attacked, or major flooding, and people were forced to try to immigrate to Mexico or Canada or someplace else, or even to other states. Because I guarantee you, the attitude that people have towards immigrants would even apply to people from other states if there was a massive immigration from one state to another. If after Sandy, the New York City Department of Buildings put together a 500-year flood plan, so that all buildings in certain parts of New York, they predicted how long it's going to take before the floodwaters start to get that bad.
500 years, huh?
Well, I guess they're optimistic that we'll still be here. But I think recent storms have shown that their estimations are a little bit off. Yeah. And so if the ice continues to melt and the waters continue to rise, because so many people are science deniers and don't believe that's ever going to happen, New York will be underwater, Florida will be underwater, and you'll have all of these people, American citizens, trying to get to Georgia or Carolina or Kentucky or Tennessee, and people from major states, major cities in those states that happen to be a wide diaspora of people, very diverse, whether you're talking about ethnicity or religion or gender identity or whatever, trying to cross the borders. I can guarantee you that these states would not respond in an altruistic, these are Americans, let's love everybody, kumbaya kind of way.
That's happening already now, because here in Maryland, in Cambridge, Maryland, the area where Harriet Tubman, where they found her house at and where she grew up at, is gradually being overran by water at this time, okay? Not 10 or 20 years or 50 years down the road. It's happening now. So parts of Eastern Shore, Maryland are going underwater. I don't see, what's going to happen is that where do these people go? Like when you look at a city of New York side, what happens when the water rises so high in Lower Manhattan that you can't use Lower Manhattan? So where does that population go? It'll start pushing itself out into the higher parts of state of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and places like that. And I think that's what you're going to see a lot of over the next, up to 100 years, because the thing about it, they said that they thought that the temperature would rise. It would take almost 50 to 60 years for the temperature to rise 2.5 degrees. And they say it's going to happen now in less than 30 years, no more than 30 years. Okay. Because we don't want to correct what's going on, and if I know in the city, you can't see a lot what's happening with Mother Nature in the city, but here, what you used to see, you don't see no more.
Oh, I see it. I see it.
Yeah,
And my husband talks to me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, it's never been this hot this time of year. And he's like,
yeah,
you say that every year, and I'm like, yeah, no, but I grew up here. I was raised here in the 70s. It used to snow up to here. Now you maybe get snow for 3 days, but all of that to say, not to pull away from the issue of Haiti, but all of that to say is that we still do not see ourselves as a global community. There's a sense of anti-globalism. We are not responsible for our neighbor, which is antithetical to Christian, beliefs. So it doesn't surprise me that in the pecking order of things, those people from Haiti and other countries of color are the lowest men on the totem pole when it comes to getting aid. Not to mention the fact of the fear in this country that some groups have of becoming the new minority, which is very interesting because the same group likes to say there's no such thing as racism or segregation or any kind of ism, and it's all in our heads. So if that's the case, then why are you concerned about becoming a minority in a country that is historically diverse?
Yeah, because they've always been on top. They've always been on top. The thing about it, people will go to Haiti and do what they have to do if there's something in it for them. Okay. There's nothing in it for them if they go to Haiti. If the largest construction company in this country decides to go to Haiti and start a rebuilding project, unless the federal government is paying them to go down there, they're not going to do it pro bono. And it's just not going to happen. But then, like I said, if they were white Europeans in Haiti, they would be rebuilding Haiti. It's just as simple as that.
Oh, absolutely. But we see this hypocrisy everywhere. And just to read Kay's comment, because it's too long to post, she says, it's the same with children of color getting shot by stray bullets while playing in their yards by gangs. No police tracking down the shooters, no FBI involvement, just playing on the yard at the wrong time. Meanwhile, a white child gets shot by a bullet on the freeway and they have a serious manhunt using extra manpower and rewards, etc., trying to find the shooter. The black child in the inner cities that was shot becomes almost forgotten. And that's 100% true. We are disposable. I think that there's some people globally who would like nothing more than for all of us to simply disappear so that they can rewrite all the history books, make Egypt white, make, Hammurabi white, make all of the gains and contributions that people of color worldwide have made and turn this in, I can't even go there, but if you want an example of this, you should read Daniel Quinn's After Dachau, which is basically a story about what happens if the Nazis won and they eliminated all people of color around the globe. And it's a frightening book when you look at what's taking place with the anti-black fervor that's going on in Greece, in Turkey, in Israel, in the United States, in the Dominican Republic, and all over the place.
But they fight against their own selves. And that's sad, that they fighting against their own brothers and sisters to maintain superiority in their countries. Haiti's never going to be put on a good footing here in the world because the United States is not going to step up and help them. And Biden showed that, and I don't know. I hear people say that they think Biden has a problem with black folks. I wonder sometimes if they're not telling the truth.
I did give him I like to think that people are capable of growth and personal evolution. And I want to believe that the Biden of today is not the same Biden of the 70s who was anti desegregation. But I will suggest that there is a level of indifference or a lack of true understanding that would result in the degree of empathy that would translate into legislation and executive orders that would benefit both immigrants and American citizens who are of color. But the interesting thing is, a few months ago, I think, and I'm trying to find the snippet, Biden, or actually no, earlier this month, the administration extended TPS benefits by 15 months to Haitians, Nicaraguans, Hondurans, and the United States, which immigration analysts say may have spurred false hope among newly arriving immigrants that they would be granted leniency to stay. So that might have helped spur the flood of people coming, in addition to response to the assassination and the natural disasters that have taken place there recently.
Well, one of the problems you have is that when you look at what Biden has tried to do, without the black vote, Biden would never got in office. Okay, that's just the bottom line of it. And everything he's promised to do since he's gotten into office, he hasn't done when it comes to blacks. Okay, I think one of the ways he can make some good, positive inroads in the black community would be to put together a task force to help figure out what to do in Haiti. And you have to do this. Now, it wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if we get a Republican president the next time around, that the Republicans jump on something like this because it makes them look good.
Oh yeah, they'll take a card out of Trump's playbook and refer to them as rapists and murderers and not sending their best, etc. Completely tone deaf to America's contribution to the destabilized nature of the Haitian government. We've stuck our nose in there. When it's amazing to me how often you get people on the right that say we need to look after our own. We're not the police of the world. We can't stick our nose in everybody's business, and yet we do, and we do it to our own advantage. We screw up the place, and then we point fingers and call it a shithole country when we helped it become that in the first place. But it's very short-sighted, I think, for the politicians in Florida to be responding the way they are, considering that Haitians make up one of the largest Caribbean immigrant groups, populations in the country, and that roughly 2/3 of that group are in Florida. So let's hope, and New York. So let's hope that those that are here, that are eligible to vote, take advantage of that in the states that they're in.
But I haven't seen a whole lot from the Haitian community concerning what's going on in Haiti.
I've seen a few, but quite honestly, I'm not really surprised. There's so much that they have to deal with right now, coordinating with their families, trying to figure out how to get money to their families, if there's any institutions that they can even get money to right now, trying to figure out how to get goods and clothes and water to them, trying to reach them at all if they can, if cell towers are down or phones are down, much like what happened in Puerto Rico after, Hurricane Sandy or Maria. So I'm sure that there are places where the population is very vocal. Of course, mainline media, whether right wing or left wing, is not necessarily going to focus on that right now. Look, we all know who runs the media, whether it's left or right. At the end of the day, they're kind of all pulling from the same script, which is side A or side B of the same album. And we may tend to agree with one side more than the other, but at the end of the day, we know that there are a fair few that are pulling the strings. All you have to do is watch all the media channels and hear them literally read from the same script. So they're getting their directions. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are Haitian voices out there that just aren't being given the platform to be seen and heard on a national level.
Now, Kay said in this statement, she said, "I disagree." I guess she was talking about the comment that I might have said concerning the lack of Biden's doing his job. She said, I disagree. He's only been in a little while. I don't agree with everything, but as a veteran, I am glad that we are out of the war. No president is perfect. In my opinion, he's trying, just my opinion, so much to do. Granted, there's a lot to do. He has many hats to wear, but he does have people around him that can wear those hats for him. Okay, he doesn't have to go out there and hit the pavement and get stuff done. I really strongly feel that when it comes to blacks, it's a lack of concern, you know, and I really feel like that's where he is. If you go back to his old days, he was not in favor of integration and using buses as a part of integration. He wasn't in favor. He was back there with the old school white boys as senators. Okay, it takes a long time for you to outgrow that. I think one of the biggest reasons Obama picked him as a vice president running mate was because of his knowledge of world affairs. Okay, Obama was a little weak in that area. He needs somebody strong in foreign affairs. Okay, everybody has their own role and where they can be picked and what they can do. If you notice, when he first got started, you heard him giving Kamala a lot to do. What is she doing now? You don't even hear from her no more.
I know. I've been wondering the same thing, and maybe we should do a show on that. Where's Kamala? Like,
Yeah,
I've heard about a couple of photo ops, but I don't. I mean, historically speaking, the vice president hasn't been given a lot of authority or leeway to have their own agency to work autonomously and work on things. I thought that might change during the Biden administration. One, because he's, an altacaca. And two, I just thought that given the summer of unrest and everything that we went through with COVID, et cetera, that he would have all hands on deck. Now, she doesn't have to be given presidential level authority. And I know that he has assigned a few things to her, but there's been no media coverage whatsoever as to whether or not there have been any gains in the areas that she's researching. So that might be an interesting show for when I come back from Ireland.
Yeah, but it hasn't. She's been mighty quiet. He gave her the task of, gosh, what did he give her the task of? I forgot what the tasks were. That she was supposed to be overseeing, or immigration, when the border was hot with people from Mexico and Central America. She was supposed to go down and handle that. And all of a sudden, that has gone quiet. So she, I don't know. I just think one of his things was, if I can get black folks behind me, I know I can win. And that's a whole new show there. Why we are so beholden to the Democrats?
Oh yeah.
Leader,
Well,
I mean, where do we go?
Well, I did read an article that quoted some Haitians in the political arena that were saying that, as a result of the Biden's lack of appropriate response to what's going on, that it's probably going to result in a loss of support for the Democratic Party. So they need to get their shit together on this, or they're going to lose a lot of votes.
Well, I think with this Haitian situation, I think he's lost a lot of confidence has been lost to him, his ability to get things done.
All the more reason why he should take advantage of Kamala and, hire some czars to handle certain subject matter and report back to him.
So, I don't know.
But yeah, it's we all need to pray for Haiti. It's always made me very sad that the birthplace of freedom of slaves in the Western Hemisphere has suffered to this extent for so long. They should be so far ahead of the game because of that. And I think that because of foreign intervention, look, they learned their criminality from us. They learned their criminality from the French and the U.S. and the imperialist forces that went there and stole and robbed from them and raped their women and enslaved their people. That's learned behavior. And I don't think that they really ever had a genuine opportunity on a political and governmental level to dig in. And whenever they did vote for somebody into office, what did we do? The CIA put together a coup, supported a military coup, got rid of them. Either they got assassinated or exiled.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if Haiti had more to offer by way of natural resources or some kind of product that the U.S. wanted or other countries wanted outside of the potential for having a military base, there'd be more of an interest in getting involved there. Now, unfortunately, that interest wouldn't necessarily be altruistic up front. At the end of the day, they're building up systems that they're going to take advantage of later on.
Right.
But right now, I don't know that they have anything to offer.
They don't. That's the whole thing. They don't. I mean, so I don't know. I don't. This is going to be a problem that's going to be going on for the next 100 years, easily, because no one wants to step up to the plate and say, "Hey, let's help them." Even if a group of countries came together and took a lead on doing something to help that country, it would be better than nothing. Like they say, why was he so in a hurry to put people on a plane and send them back somewhere where they're going back to nothing? I mean, some of those people left Haiti 10 years ago, haven't been home in 10 years, and then they've been sent back to a country that they don't even know any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I just don't know. I mean, it just comes down to the skin color, and that's just the bottom line of it.
Absolutely.
That's all it is.
Well, we'll have to monitor this closely. We should have a stopwatch to see how long it takes before this falls off the news cycle.
It's already falling off the news cycle, but it doesn't disappear. So give it a couple more days, it'll be out of the news cycle. It won't be in the news next week. And then, like I said, some of our black leaders in this country aren't speaking out loud enough either on this situation. I know we got a lot going on in this country, especially with Congress trying to get bills passed and stuff now. But these guys have not really come out. I mean, Reverend L went down there a couple of days ago, and two hecklers were in the crowd just heckling him. Two. He had to cut everything short. A couple of pastors went down there with him. Jamal Bryan, a couple other guys went down there with him, and ladies went down there with him. But no real uproar from the so-called quote-unquote black leaders in this country. Not a strong, no strong condemnation of what Biden and his crew didn't do.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of irritated. I'm very irritated with the whole situation.
Oh, to say the least.
Well,
To say the least. Well, we have 2 more minutes, so I want to invite our producer to come on and share her thoughts with us if she has any.
Fix your hair.
Oh, stop. Her hair is fine. Fix your hair.
I did that before I got on because I knew I wasn't going to get out of it. Anyway, I don't want to read anything. I want to be like Reggie. So during the show, towards the end, you saw the little flicker of the little, I don't know what is it, a worm?
Yeah, bookworm. Mm-hmm.
Reading is fundamental. And I was sending that so I could try and get a rise out of Reggie. Because I told him, I said, Chair is reading all the comments, so the next one is on him. He said he don't like, no, he said, I don't know how to read.
That's right, no.
So that was for Reggie. But, in response to this show, it's tough to watch. And I think one of you had said it earlier, that this has been something that has been ongoing with Haiti for as long as I remember. It's always been, the doom and gloom. It's always been that they are constantly hit by outrageous storms or earthquakes, stronger earthquakes than we would imagine anywhere in the United States so far. But this is an ongoing problem, and they're constantly picking up the pieces, constantly. So I don't know where all of this goes. We've been looking at natural disasters in Haiti forever, But now we're talking about a disaster because of the color of their skin, uh, them being treated badly because they have dark skin because of pigmentation.
Hmm.
So it's just an ongoing thing with this country. And how do we fix it? You know, I I don't know. But I thought that when you guys brought up the topic to talk about it, I thought it was a good idea to do because a lot of times, we get listeners who uh, they hear about certain things in the news, but who can break things down better than you? So I thought it was a good idea to do that because a lot of things that you guys have said, a lot of folks have not heard. So thank you for providing an educational piece uh, to your show tonight. I really appreciate that. So that's all I got to say.
Well, I wish there was an easy fix, but I think, and I've said this at, I think in the last two shows, until we can evolve as a human race to give a shit about each other,
Right.
to understand that we have one planet. That's all we've got. I don't know how long it's going to take for Gates and them folks to figure out how to populate other planets.
Down here.
Yeah, well, after they rape the globe, after they create natural disasters, melt all the ices, all the ice caps, and we can't even plant food anymore, that's when they'll probably jump ship. But hopefully we won't be here anymore for that.
Yeah.
But until we can change, I don't see us overnight or countries overnight becoming altruistic, doing the actual right thing. I don't
Right.
see us getting away from the tribalism that keeps us polarized, or the
Right.
racism, or any isms for that matter.
Mhm.
I wish that there were a pill or something that we could take overnight that would just make everyone irie, but we're not there yet. And maybe legalize weed throughout the country. I don't know, but
Make everybody happy.
something.
Yeah.
Something.
As long as this country and people as a whole have what we call hatred of heart, then this is what we have, and this is what we deal with.
And we're indoctrinated with it. I catch
And-
myself sometimes thinking like that,
Yeah,
and I get mad at myself.
unfortunately. Yeah, it's sad, but it also is a hard reality. And I think that hopefully one day, and I'm one that hopes, on different things, but racism and cruelty to one another is I think at the top of my list
Mhm.
when we talk about things that have to be changed, because I think that with the curing of those two things, then the rest will follow.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't see that happening anytime soon. Will it happen? Could it happen? I think so. I just don't think that it's going to be in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but I think it is ultimately true.
Yeah.
You know?
I was telling my husband the other day, somebody walked by, and I had like this whole string of thoughts and reactions to the person walking by. And I thought to myself, you don't know if any of that is true. Like, where did that come from? Get your shit together. And I get so angry at how deeply entrenched the indoctrination is that we've received in this country, that unfortunately some of us are conscious of it, and we can try to work against it. Others think that it's their innate beliefs, and that it therefore must be true because it's been true their whole life. But if we can all get out of our heads and sort of exercise all of these earwigs and isms out of our system,
Right.
We could see the sort of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I sometimes find myself doing the same thing. So I do have to work very hard and making sure that I don't become a part of what has been so indoctrinated not just amongst our people, Black people, but also whites. I try and get out of my own way because you never know and you never understand someone's story until you hear it, until you can feel it.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time, I work on myself a lot. I might cuss a lot, But that's a part of
As
the
one of the
That's
things
just
we
you.
love about you.
but I really do. I work on that every day. And I think I get so disappointed in other human beings because they don't work as hard as I do to try and get out of the way of what's going on, what we've been taught that is supposed to be something that is a part of our belief system. So I'm really, really hopeful that one day we can get aside of ourselves and start taking things for as it is, as it is, and not think of what has been taught to us, what has been told to us of what we should believe in people, because everybody is not bad, no matter what the pigmentation of your skin is. Everybody is not bad, but we've got to stop prejudging because it's not our job to judge anyway. We are not here to judge. We are here to try and make this a better place for all of us to live. Make sure that it is somewhere that we have to live, because without it, then we are destroying what this world and what this country is supposed to be. And so many sacrifices have been made from all different cultures and nationalities, but we can't see past our own to understand what others have gone through as well. There's always going to be suffering, but do we see it? Can we understand it? Can we, can we
Or do
sympathize with it?
or do we contribute to it and take joy in it? This
Exactly.
perverse joy
Exactly.
in watching people suffer. But
Yeah,
that would be an interesting show. And I don't know how we would format that, but if there were a way that we could sort of flicker through images or screens or videos and talk
So
amongst ourselves about some of the automatic thoughts that we had judging these images or people, so that we can identify some of that nonsense that we all carry.
but not only identify with it, I think that if we have that opportunity to create something like that flicker, trust me, I'll be working on it. If we can create that kind of flicker, then how do we bridge what that group has gone through to what you and your group has gone through? Because the suffering is suffering. The circumstances might be different, but the result is the same. So let me work on that. I like that. I like that. Flicker, flicker, flicker. Yeah, I like that. All right, y'all done with me?
Kind of, sort of.
Me too.
I'm done with me. Okay.
So I do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I'm really hoping that you were able to gather something and gain something from tonight's topic. I think that when we get up close and personal, things become more visible, and it puts our thinking in order as to what's going on, not just here in this country, but across the globe. So again, I have to thank Shara and Reggie for bringing this to the table and bringing light to it, because it's something to think about. Reggie, what you smiling at?
I wrote to Reggie. I'm glad Reggie's still talking to me after last week's show. So now I'm sure he's writing me some kind of wicked retort. Oh, he's talking to me because he has to.
Oh, yeah. I just saw that. I just saw that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm forced to talk to you, okay?
You're not forced to talk, just like you weren't forced to read, but you did. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight to Real World News TV with Reggie. Really, Jared?
That's what? Huh? I didn't hear you.
With Reggie Curdy and Jared Tappan. You can find them here every Tuesday night. The show always starts at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Central, and 8:30 on the East Coast. Make sure that you follow them right here on Facebook. follow them so that you can get notification of the shows. You can always go to the page and you can look at some of the past shows, or you can go to our website at hottopicstalkradio.com. Make sure that you hit the archive button because we've got some great shows from the past. Tomorrow night on Hot Topics Talk Radio, I'm really trying to find the banner. So we're going to be talking about this article and this woman who had reached out to People magazine about trying to get help for helping with her sons who have been expelled from school because she had posted some really, really racy photos. And I looked at the photos, and they were actually nice photos. They were classy. They weren't,
Raunchy.
too much. Yeah, they were really classy. But one of the children's schoolmates, his father, found those pictures and leaked them to the school. So she wasn't going to give up doing the photos and posting, so they expelled the children.
His kids should be expelled too, because his ass was on that same website. Looky.
I'm just saying.
And I said what I said.
Hey, it's your private life. You do what you want to do.
Well,
Those so
those are some of the opinions that we're going to be looking for. Mm-hmm. And tomorrow night, I am so pleased that one of our viewers, she actually is a viewer of Hot Topics Talk Radio TV and also Truth Brothers TV. Mm-hmm. I invited her as my special guest co-host because Yvonne Baker is going to be out. She is in the Keys on vacation. So I know, right? Big money. Mm-hmm. So she's going to be out tomorrow night, but Cece is going to be joining me tomorrow night, and I'm really hoping that you'll tune in. The show starts tomorrow night for Hot Topics Talk Radio at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 9 Central, 10 o'clock on the East Coast. You can make sure to find us here on Facebook under Hot Topics Talk Radio. I think that's it.
Don't forget to text me.
Yeah, I will.
Text me.
I sure will. I want your opinions because it's going to be something. Mm-hmm. All right. So once again, thank you everybody for tuning in to Real World News TV. Find them here every Tuesday night at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Central, 8:30 on the East Coast. Until next week on Tuesday, we bid you a wonderful, fantastic night, and we'll see you on Hot Topics Talk Radio on the other side.
Bye, Reggie.
Good night. Oh, bye, Sharon.
Bye, Reggie.
Look at that love that's going on. Good night, everybody.
Good night.